Hi there everyone, so welcome to the first lecture, the first video for the first learning module that you need for your CFA exam level 1. This first learning module, it's a part of quantitative methods, QM, called rates and returns, or rate of returns, okay? This one we're going to see, it's an actually very easy module to navigate. We're going to present it to you, the most important return measurements that may be a question on your exam, okay? So it's very straightforward module. I'm going to cover the learning outcomes. I'm going to give you examples, right? And I'm going to give you some ideas how those questions could be in the exam. And that's about it, okay? So I don't expect the usually complicated lecture, right? Full of details. Topics, right? Fixed income, for example, right? We're going to have some topics there that's going to be dense. There's going to be a lot of details, a lot of things to explain. This first one in quantitative methods, it's not, okay? All right. I want to give you an overview of how many modules of quantitative methods you need to know. And I'm going to do exactly the same for all the other topics: economics, FSA, corporate issuers, equity, fixed income, derivatives, alternative investments, and portfolio management. Okay, equity as well. Okay, friends, so yeah, let's go straight to the point now. What you're gonna see from now on is exactly the same format that you should expect it in every video from now on. I will start with the learning outcomes, and then I'll give you some hints or some explanation of each one, some key points, and then we go and work some examples or some key points, or do some stressing, or say, listen, this is important. I believe this could be a question on this format here, or could be a question about this. Right? Always keep in mind when you read the official material, when you study the material, on definitions, pros and cons. Okay, definitions, pros and cons. If there's anything related to assumptions, and you're gonna see, like for example in QM we have assumptions of linear regression. Well, you're going to need to know some of the assumptions because, well, guess what? Some of the assumptions could be a question. Which of the following is an assumption? Which of the following is not an assumption? You're going to see that the official material use the word least likely, most likely, not is and it is not. Most likely is, or least likely is, but still, right? It is or it isn't, right? So if you don't know the assumptions, you're not going to be able to answer some questions. So always attempting for this. Now, obviously, QM, it's a very mathematical, analytical topic. Sure. So you probably expected here at least half of those questions in QM as being numerical questions. Sure. But it's not going to be the same for economics. It's not going to be the same for, not even for equity, fixed income, derivatives, or portfolio management, and even FSA, which is accounting. You could expect conceptual questions: compare, contrast, explain, what is the difference between this and that, discuss. Discuss is more a question for level 3, but again, you need to be able to discuss something, so something related to that discussion could be a question in the exam. Anyhow, right? Another thing that's important to say to you right out of the bat here, because I should have said that in the introductory video, but I did not. Couple of things to remember. We have the entire world, the globe, taking the CFA exam at the same day. But now we have what? 5 days for level 1, right? Level 2 and level 3. Let's say, assume we have 5 days of in 1 week, 5 days for the exams. 2 exams a day, so it's 10. So each country which has a test provider will have 10 exams, right, per level, let's say, okay? A little bit more, but 10 days. So I need 10 exams. I need 10 different exams. Now, remember, we have folks taking the exam in Australia, we have folks taking the exam in Central Europe, and folks taking the exam in the Americas. Well, if I'm in Australia and when I finish my exam, someone here in America, which I am at the moment, it's sleeping. So I could combine force and say for my Aussie friend, I say, buddy, give me the questions, right? So to avoid this type of things, right, what we have is, that's my mosaic theory as well. Imagine how many different exams should be created now to guarantee that we're not going to have some easy ride for someone, right? We need to, how do we guarantee the integrity? And the exam is going to be difficult for everybody, or the level of difficulty of the exams are going to be exactly the same, or pretty much the same for everyone that's taking, right? It's a big logistic now. So I imagine what? I imagine now that anything, any line, any paragraph, any example in the official material could become a question, because we need to create a much larger sample of questions for the exams, because what? We have many more exams being applied, okay? Now we have exams for level 1 in February, we have in May, August, November, 4, right? So the exams in May have to be different than the one in February, again, right? So you see the idea here? So we're going to have to kind of like imagine that anything in the official material will be a question. All right, that's what I want to say right out of the batch. Now let's cover the first learning module, quantitative methods, which is rate and returns or rates of return, okay? But let's go to the first slide that I prepare here for you, which are the learning outcomes. There you go, okay? Now, a little comment here for you, friends. After 2024, I like it, what they did. Let me explain what they did and why I like it. Before 2024, we have less learning modules. For example, the learning modules for QM, as you're going to see after I show the slides here, we have 11 now. 11 learning modules starting in 2024. Before that, were 7 or 8. So it doesn't mean that they added more. No, they broke in pieces more. Meaning, before one learning module, they had like 3 points. Now they are 3 shorter learning modules. So in other words, it's not that the number of pages or the content increased, right? After 2024. No, is that the way that they divided the material, in my opinion, are much easier to digest. That's my opinion. So yes, you're going to have more learning modules. Instead, now you're going to have 11 instead of 7 or 8 as you had before, but smaller learning modules, right? Right to the point, right? Where the questions and the learning outcomes are much a smaller number of questions, smaller number are learning outcome, but related to that specific topic. Again, I found that easier, although we have to cover more video, we have to do more videos, right? Because I like to do 1 video per learning module. I still think that the content itself are not too much, right? They're not too many pages per modules as we had before. All right. So let's go over here. Learning outcomes. What do you need? What the candidate needs to know? So we go. The first one. And take a look at the command word here, friend. The first word is called command word. It's going to be extremely important for you on level 3. Eventually, we'll explain why. So it interprets interest rate. So look at that. Interpret interest rate as rate of return, discount rate, or opportunity cost. Right? And explain, right, the interest rate as the sum of the risk-free rate and premiums, right? So interpret and explain here, okay? You have 2 commands there, and interpret and explain. So I don't need to calculate anything yet, right? I need to understand and I need to interpret. So what is a rate of return? What do I need to measure that? What are the types? How many are there? What are the most important ones? So what is a discount rate? What is the difference? Well, rate of return is when you expect to earn. Discount rate, you expected, it's the value that you expect to bring, is how you're going to bring values from the future to the present, discounting those numbers using a rate of return, could be, or a risk, right? So again, thinking about percentage that you earned, and they can be calculated and used in different ways. Well, that's what the first learning module is. Let's see the second one. The second one here is calculate. Look at that. Calculate and interpret different approaches to return measurements over time. I have a list here for you. For example, holding period yield, HPY, or money weighted return, time weighted return. Ooh, right? Geometric average or return, right? So you have quite a few that you need to be comfortable with them, okay? All right, next one, look at that. Compare money weighted and time weighted. See, in one, now it's the point that you need to understand what's the importance of the learning outcomes, in my opinion. Look at that. One learning outcome, okay, one learning outcome C, which says compare the money weighted and time weighted rate of return. So in other words, you don't need to know how to only how to calculate each return using each of those approach, but also to compare money weighted. When do I use money weighted calculation? When do I use the time weighted calculation? And what I'm trying to accomplish, okay? That's compare, okay? It's not compare like I'm gonna calculate the one, calculate the other one and see the difference. It's more than that. Explain what, why they are different and why one will be better than the other and when, okay? Or when one will be better than the other. That's calculate and interpret. Here is actually compare, excuse me. Next one is calculate and interpret return measures in continuously compounding return, okay? So that's learning outcome D, right? The continuously compounding. See, this is different frequencies of compounding, which is important. Not only continuously compounding, but also daily, semi-annual. Those are important, right? Finally, calculate and interpret major return measures and describe their use. So that's good. There you go. We just mentioned the time weighted and the money weighted as how and when to use it. But now we're going to see a list of all the types of returns and when to use it. For example, when we're going to use the holding period of return or holding period yield, right? When do I going to do an average yield? Or what time, or the other case here, the money weighted return. Okay, so each one will be used in a particular scenario for a particular situation. Okay, which one emphasizing something. Okay, so it's important not only know how to calculate those returns, but also how to understand why they exist. Why are so many? Right? They all could be questions. Great. All right, so those are A, B, C, D, and E learning outcomes for you, friends. All right, now let's see the key points, or like summary, I guess, right? The key points. So interest rate and time value money, okay? So this one is the calculator. We're gonna see actually the next learning module is time value money. So we can put a hold on this one for now, this key point, because you're gonna see it again, okay? Now, the second key point here, determining the determinants of the interest rate, important, very important. We're going to go in more details in a second. Or in a second is a little bit too, in a few minutes. Look at that. Now the types of the rate of return, number 3. Right? So look at that. What do you have? You have the holding period. Okay, what is the holding period of return? It's how long you earn for a certain period of time. So I purchase an asset today, I hold it for 5 years, I purchased for 100, I sold for 150, I made 50% profit in the period that I was holding the asset. Now, if you divide it by the number of years, you can have more or less approximately an annual rate of return. But see, it's not that perfect, right? If I take like, okay, I hold this asset for 10 years, right? And I get $100,000 return on 10 years, it's about 10,000 per year. That's my return. But that's not exactly what happened. Some years you will probably got more, some years you got less, right? So the holding period return, it's not that descriptive. It doesn't have much information. It just give you an idea, but it's used, of course, for communication purpose, right? It's well used, holding period return. Well, then you're going to need some, if you after the holding period return, you're going to need something a little bit more specific. Then you can do the arithmetic return, like I did, take the total return and divide it by the number of years. Or you can take the geometric mean return, which is a little bit more sophisticated. In this case, we don't add and divide, but what we do is we multiply the returns, right? And then we do we instead of dividing, right, we're going to put it at a power of 1 divided by the number of years. That's the concept of the geometric mean. So it's going to give a little bit more accurate measurement, right? Because the average, it takes like you know, it's just one period, right? The normal average, the arithmetic average is just like a one period concept. A geometric average is a little bit more complex. It gives you more information. That's what I was trying to say. Then the next one is the harmonic mean return. What is the harmonic mean return? Well, the harmonic mean return we use when you have a lot of outliers. So if you measure returns now of a particular asset, and you have like absurd returns, super negative returns, or super high positive returns that every now and then shows up, the harmonic mean kind of like helps to minimize those intensity of the outliers. So it could be a good one to use, but other than that, I don't think the harmonic mean is that superior as the others. Right? But again, learn how to explain each one. For example, I just explained to you when to use the harmonic mean, right? When the harmonic mean will be preferable than the arithmetic mean. Okay? Imagine questions, friends. Everything you read here, how this could be a question, how this could be a question, because that's gonna help you to nail, right? If it becomes a question. Create this as a game, or in quotations here for you, like a little game. Let's say, okay, the game is, let's predict as many questions we can get from this. Imagine that you're getting paid to create questions from that learning module. As many questions as possible. Unique questions, right? Not only the questions in the ecosystem. When you're doing the ecosystem question, stop and then imagine how many questions could you make from that question. It's an important strategy, I'm telling you, okay? It really works. All right, let's continue here on our list. Then we're gonna go on the most important ones separately, okay? Then you're gonna see the dynamic of those video classes. All right, next one here that I have is the money weighted and the time weighted return, okay? So look at that, money weighted and time weighted. So money weighted return, it takes in consideration the money per year into an account, let's say, of an investment. So how much money was in and out on year one? How much money was in and out on year two? So with that, you can have a better average of your returns based on the amount of money that you had on per year, okay? Now, the time weighted is different, is related to the period. No, it doesn't take in consideration how much was the investment in money format, which is the money weighted return that does that. The time weighted is going to be more interested on the period, the time frame. Okay, so ignoring much the volume in and out of an investment during the year. Okay, so again, that's the difference between money and time weighted. When to use one, when to use the other one, depending on the client, depending on what you actually want, the type of information that you want to transmit. All right. Calculating the money weighted return, that's important. Just putting in the back of your mind, money weighted return is calculated using the IRR approach, the internal rate of return approach. And the time weighted return is using the geometric average approach. So associate time weighted with geometric average and associate money weighted with IRR, internal rate of return. Internal rate of return for the money weighted, geometric average for the time weighted. I think that helps. Okay? Then annualized return and non-annual compounding. Okay, that's the story where you're gonna have, okay, if it's no annual compounding, how do you compute the values, right? So if it's the biannual, you divide by 2, so semester, right? If it's daily, divided by 365, right? And if it's continuous, well, continuously, there's a formula that you can memorize for that, using the constant E, or you can kind of use the same approach. Look, if it's twice a year, right, semester, I divided the rate by 2. It's compounded twice a year. If it's every quarter, then I divided the rate by 4 because I have 4 quarters during the year. If it's daily compounding, I divide it by 365 because I have 365 days, that convention in a year. What about the continuously compounding? Think about seconds. How many seconds do you have in 1 year? And divide the rate by the number of seconds in 1 year. That's the rate per second. Put on the calculator, right? And then when you're going to do a future value, for example, you have to do the power of the number of seconds, as I'm going to demonstrate for you soon. So if you have that idea, if you forgot how to do continuously compounding, no problem. Think about compounding per second, you're going to get the same answer, right? Because the answers on the CFA exam are going to have what? 2 decimals, maybe 3 decimals, right? So for you to have a difference using the formula with the constant E, as I'm going to present here to you, and using the number of seconds to do the continuously compounding, you're going to get the same answer with 3 decimal places. So believe me, if you don't remember that, you can use those type of you need to if you understand what you're doing, then you can use alternative ways to solve the problem. That's what I was trying to mention here. Okay, all right, let's continue. What else? Okay, so the other major return measures and applications, right? So that's a little bit more conceptual. Just know that they exist. Okay, gross versus net. I think that's very intuitive, right? What is gross? Gross is before something. Net is after something, after tax, for example, after commission. Pre-tax and after tax, that's pretty much what I just said. Real return is after the inflation and all the other components, like when you have for real. Usually it's after inflation. Huh? If you disconsider inflation, how much I really earned, okay? You can also exclude taxes and etc. In leverage returns, which is the next one. Actually, sorry, forgot to switch the page. Sorry about that. There we go. So I was talking about the continuously compounding, other measures, gross, pre-tax, and here the real return, okay? Real return, which is the return after taxes and inflation. It's like really how much was in your pocket, right? That's the idea. And then you have the last one here, which is very important. It's called the leverage returns. Leverage return is the return you made when you don't put 100% of your money on that investment, right? You just put a portion, right? You put 10%, 20%. So how much return you made with investing only 10% of the total or 50% of the total? That's called leverage returns. And you could have a question on the leverage return on your exam. Like I said to you, it's so many questions that they have to create now that's possible that they create a question for each one of those points. But it's also possible that in your exam, you're not going to see them and the person is going to take the exam the next day will. That's possible as well. You're not going to see all of those topics on your exam. No. How many questions or rate and returns could you expect on your exam? Look, quantitative methods, it's about, let's say, 15% of your exam. So 10% of your exam is 18 questions. So let's say we're expecting 25, 26 questions of quantitative methods. So put 30. Well, you're not going to get 30, but let's say, okay? Well, it's not every, all 30 questions are going to be from the learning module 1, right? So, and also they're not going to be like, okay, they're going to have 26 questions. Now let's say I have 22 questions, which is a multiple of 11. 22 questions of QM, 11 modules. 22 divided by 11, 2. So should I expect to have 2 questions per learning module in the exam? No, that's not the way of thinking. You could have 0 questions of a particular learning module and 4 of another one. Okay, so be careful. You don't know how many questions of each learning module per topic will be there, and we don't even know if you will be there any at all. Okay, so because we don't know which day you're going to take the exam is going to be different than someone else's. So again, right, that's the idea. All right, friends, I think that's good. Right? In terms of learning outcomes, key points. Now let's see here how I explain each one of those points for you. Right? So there you go. Well, I'm not going to repeat the learning outcomes, but that's here because that's available for you. Those PDF files that I create with the summary of the lectures. This is available for you as well. Okay, so that would be we could provide that if you need it, okay? But those are the learning outcomes that you see on the official material. Right. Those are the key points. So most of them I already mentioned. I'm just going to focus on a little bit more on some of them. So first one here is the determinants of the interest rate. I want you to really understand that. I think most of you know what it is, but let's go. Nominal return. What is the nominal return? Nominal return, okay, is called the return with inflation. So associate the word nominal. Let's go there. Right, there you go. Associate the word nominal, friends, nominal, right here, nominal, okay, with inflation. So anything nominal has inflation on it, right? When you remove the inflation out of that, then you have the real, okay, the real. So that relationship here is very important for you to grasp, okay? That's called a Fisher. You're going to see that in economics, the Fisher identity, okay? That the nominal rate of return, it's equal to 1 plus, the formula is 1 plus the nominal equal 1 plus the real times 1 plus inflation. So again, 1 plus the nominal rate equals 1 plus the real times 1 plus the inflation. It's like a geometric mean type of thing, okay? So that's the identity, the relationship between real rate and nominal rate. Now, let's understand the rate of return per se as a whole, which I highlighted that for you. Look at that. What is included in a rate of return on an investment? So let's see. It's included. The risk-free rate is included. Yes. What is the risk-free rate? Well, it's the rate I would gain, I would get it if I put my money when I have no risk whatsoever. For proxy, we use the United States Treasuries for risk-free rate. But you could easily use the Canadian bonds, Australian bonds, right? Israel bonds, European Union bonds. You mention, right? You name it. Anything that you perceive as being risk-free, right? That the country will not default, so consequently, that's risk-free. Let's say, okay, you're gonna get your money back. Well, now, if the investment that you putting your money on or in, it's not risk-free, well, then you're gonna get compensated for the other risks. Which ones? Inflation, default, liquidity, maturity, and any other one that you can possibly exist in that scenario, right? We're not talking about here, for example, the risks involved in particular investments that differ than the other ones, right? What is the volatility risk? Well, if we're talking about options, it should be here. But again, that's just an idea for you to understand that when you're getting the rate of return, it has to have all those components for the risks involved in that scenario. All right, good. So that could be a question like in the conceptual nature of the components or determinants of the interest rates. All right, friends, now let's see examples, all right, of the most important rate of returns. I prepared that here for you. All right, first one, holding period of return or holding period yield, the HPR. Very intuitive. Everything you made plus how much you sold that investment for at the end minus how much you paid for it in the beginning divided by how much you paid in the beginning. That's P1, P0. Income is if the investment generated cash for you during that period. For example, you purchase a real estate property and you're getting X amount of dollars or X amount of money per year in rent. That's your income. Add it all the income that you made, put it there. If you use a stock, think about dividends. All the dividends you made during that period that you hold the stock. Plus how much you sold the stock for minus how much you paid divided by how much you paid. That's your hold period return. That's very intuitive for me. So let's, I imagine for you as well. Let's see the example. At T0, you bought the stock for 100. At T1, you sold the stock for 80, so you lost some money here, huh? See, your brain has to be quick on this as you read the questions in the exam. Just mentally say, okay, what happened here? Oh, I bought for 100, sold for 80. Immediately think, okay, I lost money. Prepare your brain for a negative answer, a negative return. Okay, that could help. Right? Those little things could help. Another tip here for you: if the question is too long, which I don't believe it will be for level 1, if the question is too long, have like 4 lines. Just take a look on the question. Go backwards. Go to the question mark and see what you need to answer. Take a look on the answers and then you go to the questions. That's very helpful for ethics. Okay, ethics are long questions. So if you read just the question, okay, is this a violation or most likely a violator? Then see the answers and then go back and read the ethics question. I believe that's going to be the best strategy, okay? But again, it's just an opinion here, friend, an opinion of someone that did that strategy and it works. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. I'm just saying to you, try, right? That's what you have to do while you're studying for the exam. You have to practice. So you have different brains. We all have different brains here. Some of us have similar thinking, similar way to absorb the information. Other people do not. We're all different, right? Different personalities, different lives, different this, different that. So what you need to do here is strategies to help you out. So if you are a type of person that read too fast, you're famous, right? Famous, I mean, you know yourself that you're gonna make some mistakes by second guessing yourself, for example, or reading too fast and missing the information, or sometimes mixing up most likely with least likely. So that's the time you need to observe this now. Say, hold on a sec, I'm a person that mix up most likely with least likely. So I have to be careful when I see a most likely, least likely question in the exam, right? So again, it's not only learning the material, but it's also learning strategies to do well answering the questions in the exam. All right, so in my example here, you purchased the stock for 100, you sold for 80, and you made 5 in dividends. So add the dividends with how much you sold the stock, subtract how much you sold or you purchased for, and your return negative 15%. Now, we don't know for how long is this, but let's say this was for 5 years. So that would say that your average return was minus 3% per year. Could be, but not necessarily. Could be that you had positive return on year 1, super negative return on year 2, and then in the end, you get a negative 15% in the period that you hold that investment for. But that's not telling you much, okay? So let's see something more. So instead of dividing the minus 15 by the number of years here, I'm going to use a different approach. I'm going to, instead of seeing how much I had in the beginning, in the end, and how much I made it, I'm going to do year after year or period after period and see how much money I made on per year, and then I do an average of those numbers. I would get a better answer, right? And that's what we call the geometric mean return. So the geometric mean return is very intuitive as well. So thinking about an example here, look at that. An example, now it's per time, right? That's why, pay attention, time weighted return is the geometric average return. You can memorize that way, that the time weighted is the geometric average. Well, said so, how you do it? Well, you take, if you were doing in returns, because most likely will be returns on your exam, returns are decimal numbers. If it's a decimal number, you're going to have to add 1 into that decimal number. It's 1 plus the return in decimal format. Again, 1 plus the return in decimal format. So if the return is negative, it's 1 minus that return. If it's positive, it's 1 plus that return. All right? So take a look on the numbers that I have here. I have 5% at T1, 4% at T2 in my example, negative 5 at T3, and 22% return at T4. What is the average return? Right? Well, the average return is 1 plus 5%, which is 105. Multiply by 1 plus 4%, it's 104. Multiply by 1 minus 5%, which is 0.95. 1 minus 5. And 100% minus 5%. And 1 plus 22%. Multiply, and you're going to get 1.266. And then you're going to have to average this. How many years do I have there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to do at the power of 1 divided by 4. If it was 5 years, at the power of 1 divided by 5. 3 years, power 1 divided by 3. So if I do 1.266 at the power of 0.25, which is 1 divided by 4, subtract 1, and I get 6.07% average return. That's called the time-weighted return as well. Right there in the example. See? It could be one question exam. Easy, could, yes, it could. It could be a question exam. Don't expect it complicated questions on your exam. 180 questions, 90 questions in 2 hours in 15 minutes. Right? That's what it is. 2 hours and 135 minutes for 90 questions. You need to be quick here, friends. So don't expect something too complicated. It's going to be one line question, 3 alternatives, right? And very, very straightforward. If you study the official material, the chances of you passing the exams are high. All right, now let's see the harmonic mean, which, again, I would say maybe there's no chance to be in the exam, but now that they have to create so many different questions, maybe the harmonic mean will appear in one of the exams. Right? Could be in the exam of that candidate in Australia, right? That did it on that Tuesday, but the person that did in Europe that same day did not get that question. Yes, it's very much possible. All right, so how do you do the harmonic mean? The harmonic mean, again, you get 4 returns here. Okay, I put all positives. Okay, I don't know why. Could be the negatives one. Doesn't make any difference. 15. I just saw that. 15, 10, 5, and 22%. Right. What do I do? How do I do the average harmonic on this scenario? Well, then I'll take there. Okay, the n, which is the number of observations, and I divide it by the inverse of the returns. The inverse. So I take 1 divided by 15%, 1 divided by 10, 1 divided by 5, 1 divided by 22. Those are the inverse. Right? Then I add those inverse. Right? And then I just do 4 divided by that total. Right? Then you have to use your high school math here. When I have a number divided by a fraction, is that number multiplied by the inverse of that fraction. And then you get 9.71% return here. Very, very simple. I think that's, you should have no problem calculating the harmonic mean. I put there just as an example. All right. Now, number 4, it's a question that I believe could be in your exam with more chances. The money-weighted return. And in different ways. Maybe the money-weighted return is going to be in every single level 1 exam in 2024, February, let's say. Right? Every exam will have one. But they can be asked with different numbers, with different ways, right? And it doesn't matter if the guy in Australia said to the person in Los Angeles, let's say, hey friend, money-weighted question was on my exam. You should expect that, right? So it's not, again, it would be a violation of the colleague in Australia to call the person in LA and tell what question it is, and it's going to be a violation of the colleague in LA to use that information. Although it's going to be a little bit difficult to prove that person violated the code, but the person that told the question definitely did, doesn't mean that there's going to be a problem, right? That will challenge the integrity of the exam. However, a question that's more specific, for a specific terminology or a specific point, well, then I don't think that's going to be repeated in different exams at the same period. All right, back here. Okay, let's do the practice 4 here, the money and time weighted return. Okay, so the money weighted return, in my opinion, is the most important one, because the time weighted, we just did it, an example, right? The time weighted is the geometric mean. So you just take the return per year in percentage, add 1, right? And then multiply each one of those, and then you do the power of 1 divided by the number of observations or number of years or number of periods. Well, that's the time weighted. Now let's see the money weighted. So the money weighted, it's, as the name says, money. So it takes in consideration cash flows into in the account at the end of the year, for example. So look at this example here. An individual invested $50 today. That's paid $50. Took 50 out of the pocket and put into an investment. Well, that's what we call minus 50. If you have seen questions of internal rate of return, that's how we do the internal rate of return. Remember, what is the initial investment? That's a negative number. Then all the cash flows that the investment gave it to you during the period, right? What is the discount rate that makes the cash flows equal to the initial investment? That's your break even, right? That's the same approach here. So let's say on the first year, you earn $2 on that account. Okay? On the second year, you earn $2. At the beginning of the second year, you remove the $2, but then in the end of that year, you earn another $2. How much money you have in that account during the year? $2. And in the end of the year, in the beginning of that third year, you remove $2 and then you sold the stock for $65. That's the in and outs on your account. There you go. So now that's my in and out cash flow for year one. In my example here, I have $2, right? The other one here, $2 and then 65. Those are my money. Now I'm gonna discount or find the discount rate that makes the $2 or the true money, right? The 65 combined, discounting at which rate will give me 50 initial investment, which was my initial investment, right? So it's, look at that. It's 1 plus the money weighted return at a power of 1, 1 plus the money weighted return at a power of 2, 1 plus the money weighted return at a power of 3. And then you're gonna have to find which money weighted return is that using the IRR, look at that, IRR calculation, right? You have to know how to use that in the calculator that you use, either the HP or the Texas calculator, the two official calculators, the CFA exam. Okay, make sure that you know how to use those functions. The next lecture, the time value of money, the second video, we're gonna go over in more details how to use the calculator, but I'm not gonna spend time of your videos teaching how to use the calculator, right? That's something that you really need to know how. Now, to make it like your life a little easier here, the calculations are gonna be the calculations that you're going to face, okay, are gonna be quick, and you're not gonna use all the functions of the calculator. All right, good. So doing the IRR, you put CF0 minus 50, right? Cash flow 1, 2, cash flow 2, 2, cash flow 3, 65. So for the IRR, and you get 11.73%. Okay, not difficult. The intuition behind that, that tells you more about how the quantity of money in relation now the per period giving you the return. Okay, so that's the intuition behind the money weighted return. Now, how this question could be in your exam in a difficult way, it's for you. The difficult way is, as you're going to see probably some examples, probably you will see some examples on the ecosystem where you're going to have to find the amount of money in year one, find the amount of money in year two, and find the amount of money in year three in the account, or more years if it's the case, for then apply the IRR. I think that's going to be the challenge in some of the problems. Other than that, I think the intuition behind the money weighted, it's pretty straightforward. All right? Okay, we're approaching to the end here, friends, okay? Because now we're going to see here the concept of annual rates and compounding, non-annual compounding rates. Okay, so let's see. The most common ones are the non-annual compounding. It would be semi-annual, quarterly, and daily. Okay, semi-annual is times 2. It was called the semi-annual, right? Quarter is times 4, right? And 365 is for the daily. Okay. Now I put here for you continuously compound return. Think about per second. Okay, think about per second when you're doing the continuously compounding return. Now something important here. Okay, something very, very important. Well, that's a little stress, but again, something important here. All the rates on the CFA questions, CFA exam questions, every rate will be in an APR format, annual percentage rate. It's going to be an annual rate. Any rate given on the problem will be annual. It's up to you to de-annualize those rates. We're going to see a lot of this de-annualization of rates when we talk about swaps, when we're talking about currency rates. We're calculating the future value, present value of a currency, of a derivative, that sometimes is not done in 1 year. It's doing like, the next 30 days, the next 60 days. So the de-annualization of rates, it's something that you really need to be comfortable with. De-annualizing rates, okay? So let's see how this works. So APR, as you see here, is the annual percentage rate. That's the annual frequency. So here I have 5% annually, okay? which will be 2.5% semi-annually divided by 2, or 1.25% quarterly divided by 4, 0.014% divided by 365. You can do it that way, okay? So put in the calculator, and that's something that you really need to practice, okay? How much would be 100 earning 5% during 1 year, compounded annually? No, it's 105. What about semi-annually? Well, semi-annually, you have to do it there, okay? Put in a calculator. 100, it was the present value. That's how much I have today. The period is 2, because I have 2 semesters in 1 year, 2 semesters, so N is 2. The I, the interest rate, is 5 divided by 2, okay? And then you solve, you get a little bit more than 105. You get 105.06. You get 6 cents more, right? Question, why? Can you explain why you're getting more when the frequency is not annual? The frequency of the compounding is twice, 3, 4, okay? Yes, because it's compounding, right? Interest on top of interest. So if you earn a little bit of interest, then the next compounding, that interest that you earn is going to compound together. So in the end, you're going to get a little extra, right? Just know the intuition behind. So it helps to explain. In the event you made a mistake and you said, hold on a sec, I calculated the quarterly compounding and I got less return than when I did the semi-annual compound. That's something wrong here, because you already know that the higher the frequency, the more return you should get. Okay, so if you know those things, you'll be able to kind of like guess if you made a mistake. Now you can catch the mistake quicker. All right, so if it's quarterly, you get 105.09, that's a little bit more. If it's daily, you get 105.126. So you have to put 3 decimals, because when you go to the continuously compounding, right, it's only $100. I get 105.127. Tiny little bit more than I got on the daily, okay? But that's something you need to understand. It's not because it's compound continuously that you're going to get a substantial amount of money. No, because your rate of return is also going to be divided, right? So it's going to be a tiny little number. So what I want to explain here, what I want to kind of stress here is the following. How to compute the continuously compounding. How do I do the continuously compounding, right? So you can do the following way. You can use the formula. Is this one here, look, investments times E, the constant E, at the power or RT, okay? And E being equals to 2.718. Put that on your pocket, friends. The constant E is equal to 2.718. The same way you put the pi equals 3.14. Remember the famous pi we learned in high school, right? Put E, memorize the E. It could be helpful, because some of us might make a mistake putting the E on the calculator. Something happened that day, you're not doing, just calm down, put the calculator on the side, and remember the E is 2.718, and then you put it 2.718 at the power of 0.05, right? You can do that without making mistakes, right? Because you have a number that power of another number, rather than putting finding the E. Sometimes if you are using the HP, you press the blue instead of pressing the yellow key, and then you end up getting a wrong answer, and then it's frustrating. So just, if that's the case, just remember E is 2.718, and you get the answer. All right, good. Or think about continuously compound as per second. So what do I do is this. I'll think how many seconds I'm going to have in 1 year. So you take 365 days, multiply by 60, and multiply by 60, right? Because if I take 365 and multiply by 60, okay, and more, no? I need hours times 24, okay, times 60 times 60. So look at that, 365 days. 24 hours per day, 60 minutes per day, per hour, 60 seconds per minute. Multiply all of this, and that's your number of seconds. Let's put a little bit more visible here? Good. And now use that in the formula. Divide your rate by this number. You're going to get a tiny, small number. Add 1. And then elevate it to the power of this big, gigantic number. You're going to get 105.127, very close to it. Okay? So think about continuously compounding as per second. Okay? So that gives that intuition. But remember, it's not because it's continuously compounded that you're going to get, much larger amount in the end. No, you're going to get a little bit more if it was daily compounding, if it was semi-annual compounding, but not an absurd amount. Okay? And let's finish this video with something that I found very important. Is what we call the effective annual rate, the EAR. Be careful with the EAR. Look, it's effective annual. Effective annual is different than the annual percentage rate. The EAR is the annual rate of a rate that's not compounding annually. Is that clear? Again, EAR is the annual rate of an investment that has a rate that's not compounded annually. But I need to annualize that rate of return. So what do? Okay, it's exactly what I did there. Okay, is the 1 plus the rate divided by the frequency at the power of the frequency minus 1. Okay, then you're gonna have what we call the effective annual rate of an investment. Okay, so what I was doing here was pretty much the same. I was taking $100 multiplied by 1 plus the interest rate divided by the frequency at the power of the frequency. If it's annual, divided by 1 at power of 1. It's semi-annual, divided by 2 at the power of 2. So that gives you what we call the effective annual rate. So what is the annual rate? 5, in my example, 5%. What is, pay attention now, the effective annual rate of an annual rate of 5% compounded biannually, semi-annually? Okay, it's 5.6%. Take a look there, right there. 5% if it's compound annually, 5.06% if it's compounded semi-annually. If it's compounded quarterly, well, if it's compounded quarterly, it's 5.09%. Daily, 5.126, and continuously 5.127. Okay, so that's called the effective annual rate. It's an annual rate, okay, that's not compounded annually. And you could face a question like that in the exam. Finding the effective annual rate given the APR, or find the APR given the effective rate, or even, if it was more difficult, find the frequency if the annual rate is 5 and the APR is 5.09. Then you have to use the formula to get the quarterly compound. Okay? Well, friends, that's it. Those are the topics, the most important topics. Let's do a very quick review here on the key points and then finish this video. So let's do that. Now, at the end of this video, are you able to, or you feel more comfortable about interest rates and time value money? The components of the interest rate. Do you know, or you feel more comfortable holding period of return, the arithmetic return, the geometric? Can you make the link, the geometric mean and the time weighted is pretty much the same thing? Do you know where the harmonic mean is calculated? Do you know when we're going to use the harmonic mean? Do you know why we do the money weighted? How we do the money weighted? When we're going to be using the money weighted return, right? And then we talk about the non-annual compounding and the implications that they have. All right? I have not mentioned much about leverage return. Why not? Well, because leverage return, we're going to talk about in equity. When you arrive on the topic of equity, I'm going to give you some good examples of leverage return. I found a little bit too soon to include it here. Okay? All right, friends, I think that's good. I think we did a good talking of the points here. Now that you finishing this video, my recommendation is go and start doing some problems at the end of the chapter. If you have the book, or if you have the ecosystem, go there in the ecosystem, practice as many questions on the rate of returns, the rates in returns topic. I think they'll have like, I don't know, 10, 15 questions. Do all of them, do is the answers, kind of, it's pretty much similar to the questions that I just did with you here today. And then I think you're good to go to the next video, which will be time value money, right? And then for that video, I will see you then. Okay, I hope this was good. I hope this format is helpful for you, but if it's not, I'm waiting for your feedback, for your contact. And again, friends, don't stop or don't forget to post in the group questions, points, anything, because the more you put in that group, the more you stimulate the learning. Okay? And I'll be there monitoring that group constantly to be able to answer all the questions that you may have. Okay, that's it. Let's see next one.